Hello and welcome back to the Military Matrix. Tonight, the war in Eastern Europe has entered one of its most dramatic and destabilizing phases yet, as Ukraine has carried out what military analysts are already calling one of the most strategically devastating overnight operations of the entire conflict. In a single coordinated strike window lasting just hours, Ukrainian forces targeted and obliterated what many inside Russia quietly considered the last functioning backbone keeping Moscow's war machine operational. This was not a symbolic strike, not a morale raid, and not a message attack. This was a calculated, precision-driven operation aimed at removing Russia's remaining ability to sustain large-scale combat operations across multiple fronts at once. And the consequences are already rippling far beyond the battlefield. According to preliminary intelligence assessments and satellite confirmations emerging through the early hours, Ukrainian long-range strike units executed a synchronized assault against a cluster of critical Russian assets deep behind the front lines. These assets were not frontline trenches or artillery batteries. They were the lifelines, the logistics arteries, energy nodes, and command-and-control systems that allowed Russia to keep troops supplied, armored units fueled, missiles launched, and communications intact. Within a matter of hours, several of these nodes went dark simultaneously, triggering cascading failures across Russian operational sectors. What makes this night different from previous Ukrainian strikes is not just the scale, but the target selection. For months, Ukraine has systematically degraded Russian ammunition depots, airbases, radar stations, and bridges. But this time, Ukrainian planners went after something far more fundamental: the systems that allow Russia to regenerate combat power after losses. In military terms, this was an attack on sustainment, the invisible framework without which even the largest army begins to collapse from within. Sources close to Ukrainian defense circles indicate that the operation had been in preparation for weeks, if not months. Intelligence gathering, satellite surveillance, cyber reconnaissance, and human intelligence were all reportedly fused into a single operational picture. When the strike finally came, it unfolded with near-surgical timing. Explosions were reported almost simultaneously across multiple regions, overwhelming Russian emergency response systems and preventing rapid containment. Within minutes of the first impacts, Russian military communication channels began showing signs of disruption. Units reported difficulty receiving updated orders. Logistics convoys halted without clear instructions. Fuel distribution schedules were abruptly suspended. In several areas, power outages affected military installations that rely on civilian grids. Exposing a long-standing vulnerability Russia had struggled to fully secure. Perhaps most damaging was the reported destruction of a key centralized logistics coordination hub, a facility responsible for managing supply flows to multiple fronts. Analysts described this hub as the heartbeat of Russian sustainment planning. Without it, resupply becomes fragmented, delayed, and chaotic. Frontline units may still have weapons, but without fuel, spare parts, medical evacuation routes, and real-time coordination, their combat effectiveness rapidly deteriorates. As dawn broke, satellite imagery began confirming widespread structural damage. Fires burned uncontrollably at several sites, suggesting secondary explosions, often a sign of stored fuel, ammunition, or sensitive equipment igniting after initial impacts. Russian emergency services struggled to access some areas due to destroyed road links and unexploded ordnance. In at least 2 regions, local authorities declared temporary security lockdowns, further complicating military movement. The Kremlin's response was swift but notably vague. Official statements acknowledged incidents and attempted attacks, but stopped short of detailing the scale of the damage. State media shifted quickly to alternative narratives, emphasizing resilience and continuity. Yet behind the scenes, reports indicate urgent high-level meetings were convened to assess the extent of the losses and determine how quickly or if the damaged systems could be restored. Military experts observing the situation note that Russia has been relying increasingly on a shrinking number of high-value infrastructure nodes to keep operations running. Years of sanctions, battlefield attrition, and industrial strain have limited Russia's ability to replace complex components quickly. When Ukraine struck these nodes, it wasn't just destroying physical assets, it was targeting time itself. Every day, these systems remain offline compounds Russia's operational paralysis. On the battlefield, the effects are already becoming visible. Russian units in several contested sectors reportedly reduced their rate of fire within hours of the strikes. Armored movements slowed. Air operations were scaled back, not necessarily due to aircraft losses, but because of disrupted maintenance cycles and fuel allocation. This is how modern wars are won or lost, not always through dramatic frontline breakthroughs, but through the silent strangulation of logistics. Ukrainian officials have not claimed responsibility in explicit terms, adhering to a strategy of calculated ambiguity. However, senior defense figures have hinted that Ukraine will continue to target what they describe as systems of war sustainability. The message is clear: as long as Russia continues its offensive, Ukraine will seek to make that offensive impossible to maintain. International reaction has been cautious but intense. Western defense analysts are closely studying the operation as a case study in asymmetric warfare against a numerically superior adversary. The strike demonstrates how intelligence-driven targeting and long-range precision capabilities can neutralize advantages in manpower and equipment. Several NATO officials, speaking anonymously, described the operation as textbook modern warfare. A blend of kinetic strikes, electronic disruption, and strategic timing. Inside Russia, the psychological impact may prove as significant as the material damage. The idea that critical systems once considered untouchable can be destroyed in a single night undermines confidence within both the military and the broader population. When the infrastructure that keeps a war going is no longer safe anywhere, the entire strategic calculus changes. As this story continues to develop, one thing is already clear. Last night was not just another strike. It was a turning point. Ukraine did not simply hit Russian forces, it hit Russia's ability to fight. And once that ability is gone, even the largest army in the world finds itself dangerously exposed. We will continue monitoring developments closely, bringing you verified updates, expert analysis, and on-the-ground assessments as more information emerges. This is the military matrix where strategy, reality, and the future of warfare intersect.